Hello and welcome back. In this session, we're going to briefly touch on time-aware modeling in version 17. So I got asked the question today, am I going to be doing videos more in depth on TAM or time-aware modeling? And the answer is absolutely yes. It may be mostly part of videos that we're doing on project delivery and modeling in general. We're using TAM every day, timelines every day. And this new feature in Sparx 17 makes it a lot easier to have a conversation with stakeholders and show stakeholders how models and design are moving over time. I'm going to reuse a model we created when we were talking about platform independent models to domain specific language. Platform independent model is PIM and domain specific language is DSL. And I'll try to put a link to that video in the description. But we're going to look at this very simple class diagram for building an application that calculates area and perimeter over rectangles and circles. All right. So this could be applicable to any other simple software design, class diagram, all the way to very complex progress across your design paradigm. All right, so timeline can be found in the design tab. So here's timelines. I'm going to select it and it brings it up here for me in the upper right. It could be popping up. This window could be popping up anywhere within your modeling environment. You just put it where you want to. I created a workspace layout for time-aware modeling, and it basically goes through and puts it in the lower right for me. And this way I can drag and drop it out for conversations that I'm having with stakeholders. So I'm going to put it down here for a moment. In this case, we can look at the current session, which if we show the snapshot was nothing. We started from a blank. In the session, there were 0 objects and 0 connectors. And over a period of time, we added elements. We started adding realization, and then we started to add more elements within the model so that we understood what was going on in this diagram over a period of time. But let's roll over to the fun tab, and that's snapshots. So in snapshots, and I'm going to turn off notes, hide, not edit comment, right click again, hide comments. So over a period of time, when we first started putting the elements in, it saw that. We're going to show the snapshot. So we just started bringing in, we just started having a conversation, and we were stating to the team, hey, these are the class elements we're going to work on based on the nouns and verbs that are in the requirements. So the nouns dealt with shapes. The shapes in particular were rectangle and circle. And the requirement was to build an interface that allowed us to calculate the area of and perimeter of a rectangle and a circle. So if you've been in design sessions before, you understand that you're whiteboarding, you're creating an outline for solution and design. And so when you're doing that, you're going to start with, let's bring in some basic elements to look at. Now, in the old way of doing things, we would bring in the elements, we would draw realization from the elements and the requirements so that we could understand what was being developed, solution designed going forward. And we start the conference call, or if it's an in-office meeting, we start the conversation with, here are our building blocks that we're going to work with. And then over a period of time, we go, well, what's the relationship between the building blocks? And you'll start drawing in your connectors, in this case, realization, but you may be bringing in many type of connectors or associations between the elements within your object-oriented design. And as you're going over time, you're basically saying, okay, let's look at our data. Let's bring in some attributes. And these attributes, depending on the programming language you're using and the architecture style you're using, these could change into properties. But the bottom line here are the attributes. And then we start to move in, well, let's bring in some operations, all right? So that we understand the verbs that are in our requirements, the functions, methods, and operations that need to take place within the building blocks that we have. And they could be class elements that represent software. They could be block diagram or component elements or deployment elements that represent servers, nodes, and so on. It could be anything. But in this case, we're dealing with class diagram and classes. And then over a period of time, let's now apply the primary constructors for the classes that we're building out as we're moving forward. And then we start working on the interface, because you're working from the bottom up. There's no point of starting an interface until you understand, well, what are you interfacing for? And then you start to get to that point. And then we start talking about program interfaces, main functions, and things like that, especially when we're facing developers that are going to be building out particular modules, class elements, and code for unit testing, and then to be passed on to testers that are going to be doing system testing and integration testing. So with time-aware modeling, you're capturing snapshots as you're progressing through a conversation. And this is a very simplified view as we're doing this, but this was extremely powerful. Let's roll back to the beginning of the call. Let's roll back to this particular point. What were the associations? What are we realizing? What are we implementing? Those kind of things, and you're able to look at that. And then the ability in timelines we're going to show comments. And I know this is really small and I can't enlarge it. I'll zoom in on the window, but the ability to add in notes as you're taking these snapshots was extremely powerful. So imagine you're having a conversation. You can get as complicated as you want. Let's go in and edit a comment and fill up this. We haven't tested the limits or looked at the database on what the limits are, but you could pretty much write a lot of notes about what's going on in this change over a period of time and do that. And select help if you need help. We're going to cancel out. So very, very powerful as we're moving through. We're looking at snapshots. We're looking at the end versus the middle versus the beginning and those kind of things. So timelines, wow, very powerful. When you get to version 17, start playing with it and implementing it within your project delivery. Time-aware modeling has been around since version 16. And I didn't do any videos on it because it didn't have very many people that were interested in it. But this is where you're getting into versioning, you're getting in cloning elements and things like that. And we'll do more of that in future sessions where we're getting into packages, elements, time-aware modeling, and versioning. So, if you need help on that, again, you can go to help. I'll include some links down below to help you get started ahead of time, ahead of my videos at least, on this subject. But today I just wanted to talk about timelines and diagram snapshots. And to wrap up here, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about compare. So I'm just going to click anywhere in here and then compare snapshot. So in compare, you're bringing up the baseline type window to do comparison, and you can see that, well, these elements had changed. This particular element was new. And let's go back to the very beginning. We're going to run compare again, snapshot compare. And you can see from, well, the model that we're in now, we made continued changes to these class elements and the interface. Program was new. Realization was new. And looking back at the very beginning when we started. The amount of data that's available in here is a little bit limited, but yeah, it's still extremely powerful. You're in a call, you're taking a break. I've been in sessions where they go all day, 8 hours. We'll go to lunch break, we'll come back. All right, what changed before the break? I often don't leave for lunch. I continue to work. So when we're coming back in, it's basically, all right, this is the stuff that I did while you all were out, right? So very, very nice ad, very easy to get to based rather than using baselines. Stopping and going out. Let me go ahead and close this. Stopping and going out and doing a Control-Alt-B and bringing a baseline. We've only run one baseline at this particular time, so if we show difference, there's not going to be any difference. But typically, before we started using these timeline features, we would take snapshots, and I've talked about this in baseline videos and so on. We would take snapshots throughout the period of time, whether it's an hour meeting or it's an all-day meeting or it's an all-week work effort. And we'd be able to reflect back on what changed. And then unless we were doing cloning of the versions of models, we really couldn't easily share the different models. Might try to do a video on that, but the new features in 17 make that now effortless. So yeah, so very nice again. Now this next part's more advanced and you might want to skip over it, but I got to ask the question, well, where is this data in the Sparx database? And so I am going to roll over to, we're going to go to start. There we go, the right one here. And then let's go to search. We're going to go to models. And then what I'm going to do is go to my searches to expose the table. So I have a very simple SQL statement in here in the T version table. Let's go ahead and run it. So right now it's a lot of gobbledygook. It's a lot of stuff that humans can't read. So we have the element type here. Basically it's just stating it's a snapshot. And then you might have notes, and for some reason the notes aren't showing there. And you have version date, but all the other stuff is GUID related. So we're getting into global unique ID. So that's not that one. This one over here, version. So you're looking at version, you're going, well, what's a version ID? And so I'm getting a lot of questions on that. So I'll try to get into this because we actually mine our Sparx data. So we have a lot of projects that are out there, a lot of different SQL instances. We even mine data from a SQLite out of local projects. We can mine that data and we put that into our big data repository where we do all sorts of, mashing up and pattern recognition and advanced analytics in general. And this now is becoming part of that conversation and that need. We're still going to go to the document table, grab baseline data, and mine all of the data that's across the 99 other tables and mash that up for our analytics. So much later conversation, we get into it. It's advanced, but I felt I had to touch on it. All right, we're going to wrap up here. Thanks very much for watching. And I hope this video was helpful for those that are interested in timelines and time-aware modeling as you're moving through your own project. So till that next episode, happy modeling.